Good morning. It is August 23rd. I'm Ali Velshi. We're 72 days away from the critical vote that will determine who will be the next president of the United States. And overnight, Donald J. Trump facing an attack from within, not just from within his circle, from within his family, from his own sister, Marianne Trump Barry, a former federal judge, in this new secret recording made by his niece, Mary Trump, and obtained by the Washington Post. Let's listen.
It's God tweet and the lying. Oh my God, I'm talking too freely, but you know, the change of stories, the lack of preparation, the lying, the holy. But he's appealing to the base, what they're doing with the kids at the border.
Now, she was referring to Trump's policy of separating children from their parents at the southern border. The Washington Post has reached out to Marianne Trump Barry for a comment, but has not heard back. The recordings were made in 2018 and 2019 and are just surfacing a week after the death of Trump's younger brother, Robert. This morning, the White House released the following statement on Trump's behalf. Quote, "Every day it's something else. Who cares? I miss my brother, and I'll continue to work hard for the American people. Not everyone agrees, but the results are obvious. Our country will soon be stronger than ever before," end quote. Also overnight, a new headline by the Washington Post editorial board warning a second Trump term might injure the Democratic experiment beyond recovery. The Washington Post words seem to echo a similar tone set forth by Trump's predecessor, Barack Obama, at the Democratic National Convention.
Donald Trump hasn't grown into the job because he can't. And the consequences of that failure are severe. This administration has shown it will tear our democracy down if that's what it takes for them to win. For close to 4 years now, he has shown no interest in putting in the work. No interest in finding common ground. No interest in using the awesome power of his office to help anyone but himself and his friends.
This week, members of the GOP machine will have the unenviable task of trying to put lipstick on a pig at this week's Republican National Convention. New reporting says Trump has enlisted help from a former producer on The Apprentice to turn the RNC into a hit show. But the real show was on Capitol Hill yesterday, where the House passed a bill allocating an additional $25 billion in funding to the United States Postal Service, the organization that Trump has routinely attacked. The final vote was 257 to 150, including the support of 26 Republicans. The bill attempts to reverse any changes put into place by Trump donor and recently appointed Postmaster General Louis DeJoy, who testified before a Senate panel on postal slowdowns on Friday. The bill is expected to go before the Senate, where Mitch McConnell has already said he will not bring it up for a vote. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi stressed that the legislation is at its core not just about the coming election.
Postmaster General is saying we're going to not do any of this until after the election. Our legislation is not just about the election. It's about, surprise, surprise, Mr. Postmaster General, the coronavirus, COVID-19, which has a big impact on the election as well as first and foremost on the health of the American people.
Now, DeJoy will be on the Hill tomorrow to testify in person before the House Oversight Committee. Yesterday, House Oversight Chair Carolyn Maloney released a trove of documents showing changes to the post office under DeJoy, which are more wide-reaching and insidious than the Postmaster General has let on to date. Joining me now, Congresswoman Stacey Plaskett of the United States Virgin Islands. She is the senior whip of the Democratic caucus and is a member of the House Oversight Committee. Congresswoman Plaskett, good to see you again. Thank you for being with us. There are a lot of people who thought that, with the exception of a few Democratic challengers on Friday in the Senate, the Postmaster General got an easier go of it than he is likely to get at the House tomorrow when you and your committee address him. What are you planning on asking him? What answers do you need?
Well, as you know, we sent a 10-page letter requesting documents and answers to questions from the Postmaster General. And so we're going to be delving very deeply into those documents. My colleagues have been home. We've all been in the district and have heard the cries of veterans who are needing medicine, elders, small businesses that are going under because of these delays. And of course, what's looming ahead of us is the November election. And so we're going to be asking what have been the reasons for these delays? How has he enabled the shutdown of many of these post offices, closing boxes, closing sorting, creating logistics that have caused people to not receive mail for weeks at a time? All of this, we believe, is a sabotage, an attack on our democracy. That is on one of the most sacred rights of Americans, the right to vote.
Congresswoman, one of the things that Joyce said is that he is going to stop the dismantling or the decommissioning of some of these mail sorting machines and stop some of the cuts that he's made. He has made no commitment to reinstate them to the level that they were at before coronavirus, which is what Democrats have asked for. They've asked for service levels to be reinstated to where they were on January 1st, 2020, until the end of the pandemic. That is not a commitment he has made so far. Are you going to be pressing for that?
And that is not something that we'll be satisfied with, because we know, as you can see from the report that Chairwoman Maloney put out yesterday, that there have been deep cuts that have been made in the post office before he has decided that he was going to stop. And so he needs to roll back and begin doing what they were doing January 1 and put those machines back in place, open the sorting again, allow the postal trucks to go where they need to go. We're also requesting, and as you saw in the bill that was passed in the House yesterday, requesting the same thing that the unanimous Board of Governors has requested. These were Trump-appointed governors that are on the Postal Board who are requesting more money than we even gave. They requested $75 billion. We passed a bill with $25 billion. It's now up to the Senate to do the same, to be concerned with our elders, be concerned with our veterans, as well as be concerned with our democracy and the ability of elections to take place. We know with the coronavirus, there's going to be probably half of the country will be voting by mail. Our absentee ballot, the same thing that the president does and many of the members of his family and his administration. Mail-in ballots, absentee ballots, it's the same thing.
So one of the things that a number of secretaries of state and politicians at the state level have done in the wake of the news that the Postal Service is slowing down was the idea of establishing mail drop boxes or voter drop boxes. The president has tweeted on that this morning. He says, so now the Democrats are using mail drop boxes, which are a voter security disaster. Among other things, they make it possible for a person to vote multiple times. Also, who controls them? Are they placed in Republican or Democrat areas? They are not COVID sanitized. A big fraud. The president, there's no solution to voting during the pandemic that it appears that the president is prepared to accept, except for absentee voting in Florida, which he seems okay with after someone told him that a lot of senior citizens in Florida are going to use that to vote for him.
Well, the president doesn't seem to be happy with a lot of things during this pandemic, including science, which has told him what he should and should not do, and leading the American people. So his tweets are of no importance to, thankfully, many of the governors who are doing with their secretaries of state who have responsibility for these mail-in ballots and for elections in those states. But to be clear, the House is also concerned with those states that do not have governors who are trying to support them. We know that voter suppression goes on throughout the United States. We saw it in the gubernatorial election in Georgia. We've seen it in Kentucky, trying to close polls at the last minute in Black areas. And so we're going to be vigilant and make sure that at least with the U.S. Postal Service, that is able to take place. But, you know, there are issues that are occurring even before November with the mail. We are trying to get to the bottom of what was who was the initial decision maker and the suggester of what has happened to the post office right now. These are things that we're going to be asked. Now, we've been able to meet the House Democrats on the Committee on Oversight, led by Carolyn Maloney, have been meeting, and we believe that we're going to be prepared to question him tomorrow. He's not going to have as fair a time as he did in the Senate, and he's going to have to answer these questions. He's not going to run out the clock and speak in platitudes. and tell us that he's going to stop doing what he was doing already, we have got to get to the bottom of this.
Yeah, I'm intrigued because Senator Gary Peters of Michigan asked him about whether Treasury Secretary Mnuchin had been involved in some of these decisions, and he had a long pause before he answered it. There's new reporting overnight that, in fact, Mnuchin may have played a role in directing the Postmaster General to make some of the decisions he did. So we are going to be listening very keenly to the testimony tomorrow and to your questions. Congresswoman, thanks for being with us. I want to remind our viewers, we're going to be talking about it later in the show, but we have two hurricanes headed toward the Gulf of Mexico. And Congresswoman Plaskett, you and I have, of course, spent a lot of time talking about hurricanes and the help that the federal government needs to provide to Americans in the wake of them. So I hope that that will be forthcoming as well. Congresswoman Stacey Plaskett of the U.S. Virgin Islands. We'll keep an eye on those two hurricanes.